Hi, sisters. Welcome back to my
Past.
Motherhood Survival Guide. Mom brain, I can't even remember the name, but thank you so much for joining again. So, today I just have to talk about this topic. I feel like almost every mother and soon to be mom, will face this at some point. It's so annoying, but I just have to talk about it. And it's like, how do you handle people's comments about your child? Like, how do you handle that? So that's what I'm going to talk about today. And as a mom of three babies, I call them babies, even though the oldest is three, the middle is two, and the youngest is 9 months. But they're babies to me. And I'm such a mama bear, a lot of times. And I'm sure a lot of you can relate. And as a mama bear, like every little thing matters to me. Anything people say, I'm very careful. I'm always listening to what people have to say, especially if it has to do with my kids, right? So that's why I really wanted to talk about this topic. So as we dive in, let's start off with like the types of comments moms get from people about their child. Like, for example, I think a common one is like someone might say, "Oh, your child looks really small for a 3 year old." Like, I've heard that one before. Or, "Oh, your child is very tall. He's two? Wow, he's very tall for a 2 year old." Stuff like that. Or, sometimes you might get someone who's a little more like a little more specific, like, "Oh, your kid's head shape is a little off." Yeah, people say stuff like that, like, oh, like what? Like things like that. But these are the comments that you might get. And sometimes it can be a little mean. And I feel like where they say it to matters and how, because like if they're saying it in front of a bunch of people, that's different. Like, how do you handle that versus if they pull you aside and say it to you specifically alone, like a one-on-one, that's also different, right? Your reaction can be different based on where they say it and how they say it. But either way, it's unwanted because you didn't ask for it, you know. But anyway, those are the type of comments that especially moms hear all the time, and dads do too. I'm sure. I don't know how dads handle it, but we're going to just dive into how some moms can handle it and how I handle it. But first, like, why do people feel the need to even comment? Let's look at that. Like, why? I ask myself, like, why? Like, I know myself, even before I had kids, I would never, like, I just don't have that I'm not that bold and I'm just not that person. I would never go up to a mom or a dad and say something to them about their child unless it's something positive, like, oh, your baby's so adorable, like something like that, or, oh, that's so sweet. Your kid is so sweet for, sharing or something like that. But I would never say anything else. It's none of my business, you know. But, once in a while, maybe if it's like a family member's kid and you're worried about their behavior or something that you're like, okay, I need to say something, that's different. But in that case, like I usually like, let's say it's my niece or nephew, I would pull my sister or brother, whoever's kid it is, pull the parent aside and be like, hey, by the way, this is what I noticed. I just wanted to point it out to you. And like, I really care about your kid. So I just thought I should share that, or something, like, but and you know what? If I do that, I know that they have the right to react whatever way they choose to. And I have no right to complain about it. If they get mad at me and tell me, stay out of my business, don't worry about my kid, that's okay. I'm not going to be upset. But that usually doesn't happen when you're being genuine. People can tell if you're being genuine, right? Anyway, so that's how I used to handle it when I'm the person that needed to say something, you know. But I don't know, but I feel like some people are just mean. There's some mean people in the world, unfortunately. Cause like I feel like some people say things like whether it's jokingly or just straight up to you about your kid in front of your kid and in front of other people. I feel like they do that on purpose. Maybe they think that you're naive as a mother and they're like, oh, she ain't gonna do nothing about it. I'm gonna say whatever I want. Or maybe they didn't realize that what they're about to say can impact the mother or the child and they just said it. But I think a lot of times I feel like they just say it just like to be snarky. Like some people do say it to be snarky. I'm gonna be honest. Like that's how I feel. But overall, like I'm not saying people shouldn't make a comment when they, have something important to say, that's fine. But like the way you say it too can give a different message or meaning about what you said. So, anyway, now that we know what kind of comments, we have an idea of what kind of comments moms get sometimes and why people might say those things or why people do it. Now let's go into how to respond to unwanted comments. Well, like I'm not an expert or anything, so I can't give you an expert answer, but I can tell you how I respond. So for me, let's say I get a comment, someone say something to me about my child, and we're around a lot of people and they're saying it to me or to the child or just as a joke or whatever, right? If that ever happens for me, I'm going to automatically assume that it is ungenuine. You're not genuine. It's ill will, period. It's ill will. And the reason is because if you truly cared about my child, it doesn't matter what you have to say to me. If it isn't something that's positive, you should never, if you really cared about my child, you would never say it in front of them when they can hear you. And you would never say it in front of other people because, first of all, what do you get out of saying that in front of all these people and in front of my child? Did they need to hear that? No, they didn't. So you're just diabolical. You're just evil. Like you didn't have to say that. So how do I address that? What I do is I actually will put the person on the spot, right? Since you felt like putting me on the spot and saying something negative, something about my kid, I'd be like, this is how I handle it. I'll be like, oh, when did you get your pediatrician? Like, let's say someone says, oh, your child is kind of small for a 3-year-old. Oh, okay. When did you get your pediatrician degree? Oh, I didn't know you were studying child development. And of course they'll be like, no, I'm not a pediatrician. Oh, I'd be like, oh, okay, because I almost cared about your opinion for a minute. Oh, so you're saying that your comment was not genuine at all. It was just an attack. Okay, that's cool. You're just attacking my child because you have no experience. Thank you, but I don't need your comment. You can take that somewhere else, and don't worry, I'll never bring my kid around you. You don't have to worry about his development. Like literally, that's how I would respond. Even though I've never been in a situation where I had to do that, but in my mind, my mom world, I'm thinking that's how I'm going to respond. And I don't care. That's how I'm going to do it. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's family member, friends, a neighbor. That's what's going to happen if you feel the need to make a comment in front of everyone and in front of my child that it's not a positive comment, especially like you know. That's what I'm going to say. I'm going to give you the same negative disingenuine energy that you're giving to me and my child in front of everyone. That's what's happening. Okay. But now let's say the person pulls me aside and says, hey, listen, I noticed, this or whatever it is, like, hey, is everything okay? I don't know, something, whatever. I can't think of a situation, but someone pulls me over and actually gives me a genuine, oh, here we go, example. So like, how every kid develops differently, right? Especially with language and communication, like verbal communication. Every child develops like verbal communication at different times, right? So let's say my child hasn't developed that full communication yet, and the person's like, thinking, oh, well, he's he's 5. I mean, my kid's not 5, but they're like, oh, he's 5 and he's still isn't talking. Oh, well, that's concerning. And they come to me and they pull me aside in private. Hey, I noticed that your son doesn't fully talk yet. So, and maybe they had that experience too. Like, hey, my sister's kid or my kid also like didn't talk to, they were like 5. But, I don't know if you probably already, you're probably already helping him, but I just want to share, like, if you need help, like if you need advice, let me know, because this is what my sister did or this is what I did with my kid. Like that's genuine, like that. I can see the genuinity in that. And I'm not saying you have to be a mom to say that to me, but you can say my sister, someone also has a kid, like that's fine. I'm not gonna be mad at you. But and of course you're saying it when my kid isn't around, because if you're you don't say that in front of my kid. No, you don't, right? But if you are saying it in private to me, I will respect that. I will respect that. And and maybe I'm already working on it. I'm going to say, hey, oh, actually, he's taking speech. We have a speech therapist that works with him, or he's in school. We're putting him in school early, or this or that. And maybe I'll share with you what we're doing to help him. And that's totally fine. But so do you see the difference? Like if they do it in private, that's different. But if you're going to do it in public and in front of everyone, in front of my child, no, that's not going to go over well. You cannot convince me that you're being genuine and that you care about my child, because that's not true. You would never, no, you would never want someone to do that to your child. So maybe you do, and that's on you, but you are not going to do that to my child. And there's this phrase I learned in my career. It's called punish in private, praise in public, right? Not that this is really a punishment. Someone saying, hey, I noticed blah, blah. It's not really a punishment, but do you get what I'm saying? Like, if you know something can come off negatively and it's not really a compliment, then do it in private. That's what we learned. Do it in private. But if it's with the person, talk to the person in private. But if it's something that's positive, like, oh my God, your baby's so adorable, or, mashallah, your baby is so smart. She's already walking. Wow. Like things like that, you can do it out in public. That's fine. You can say it in front of the kid. It's cool, because we want to talk positive to our kids. And that's the other thing, right? Like we want our kids to always hear positive things, especially when it's about them. You want to tell your kid, you're smart, you're intelligent, you're beautiful, you're kind. Like that's how you raise good people. But if you let people sit around and say negative things about your kid, and actually another point is, I just thought of, sometimes you can't tell. You're like, like, especially when it's very close family members. Like, I don't want to say like your mom or your dad, whatever. I don't feel like our parents would do that, but like someone that's really close to you and you consider a really close friend that you trust and you feel care about your child, they might say something and you're like, if you're sitting there wondering, uh, was that like, should I be mama bear and protect my child right now, or should I just leave it alone? Like, I don't know how to take that. If you go home thinking, worrying about it, like, was that genuine, or were they just trying to like insult my child? Like, and you're feeling some type of way afterwards, just know it wasn't genuine, sis. It wasn't. I'm sorry, mommy. That was not genuine. That person, I don't care if it's your best friend, if it's your sister, I don't care who they are, they were being they were being rude. They were doing it, they were being disrespectful, period. Because as a mom, you have instincts and you have to listen to your instinct. I know sometimes our instincts can run with us, but I feel like when it comes to our child, I'd rather overreact for my child than not react at all or underreact. And I don't know if that's a word. And then my child hears this negative comment and feels sad. Like, that sadness would break my heart if my child felt some type of way because someone said something. I don't care if you're my best friend. I don't care if you're my sister. I don't care who you are. You don't do that, you know? But, obviously when it's our mom and dad, there's different ways to handle it. If I hope that never happens to anyone, but, let's say if your mom or whatever, someone says something, they're close to you. I think another way to handle it, if you're like, oh, I really don't want to just like shout out at this person because maybe they're an older generation and this is how older generations just say things because they're like, oh, it's my grandkid, I can just say whatever. If it's like that, maybe talk to, if it's your spouse's family, side of the family, maybe talk to him and be like, hey, you need to address this with your family. This was inappropriate. I just felt like it was inappropriate. You need to address that with them. And next time, if they have something to say, they can say it to us privately. And if it's your side of the family, of course, you can address it with them if you want to later. But usually, I think it's good to say something because your child is sitting there and listening, especially when your child can hear it. And remember, just because your 2-year old or 3-year old or even 1-year old hasn't fully developed that language and can't really understand everything that's going around yet, does not mean that it's okay. Sometimes you don't know because there's some kids like they understand, like my sons, they understand really well. They're 3 and 2, but they understand things. I feel like they know what's going on, especially if you say their name, they think they know you're talking about them. Even though they can't communicate and have a full conversation with you, they know you're talking about them. So in that type, because of that type of situation, you want to make sure you respond appropriately or in a way that at least lets your child see that this is not acceptable. Like, no, that ain't accept, this behavior is not acceptable. This person saying this, this comment, whatever it is. But anyway, this is just another way to protect your child. And at the end of the day, I'd rather lose friends and connections and whatever, family members not wanting to talk to me because I stood up for my child, then have a bunch of friends and a bunch of family members that love me and want to come over every day, but they're disrespecting my child. Like, I'm not going to do that. I'd rather have no friends and everybody can cut me off. I don't care. That's one less disrespectful person I have to deal with. That's how I see it. I'm sorry, my child comes first. But overall, I will say just listen to your instinct. That's what I do. Listen to your, if you feel some type of way about a comment, even at that moment or even later, you, that is a sign that the comment was probably ingenuine. That person was being cruel, but they're doing it in a slick way. That's literally what that means. To me, anyways, that's how I see it. But hey, please comment below if you feel like I'm doing too much mama bear going on over here. Please let me know. Or if you handle it differently, if there's another way I didn't address that you think makes more sense, please let me know. Like, we're learning from each other. And motherhood, like I like to say, is like you're blindly just navigating through it. That's literally how it is. And you don't know certain issues exist until you run into it. Like this one, I didn't know until someone said something. I'm like, oh, how do I handle that? Sis, don't feel bad standing up for your child ever. Don't ever feel bad. Who cares about the relationships that you're cutting off? Honestly, do not feel bad. Your child needs you to stand up for them, especially when they're really young and they can't do that for themselves. So don't ever feel bad. And it's none of people's business. It's your child. They need to stay out of it. That's it. But thank you so much. I'm sorry for being a mama bear on this video, but thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, sis.